Night. There is a van on a deserted road. Jane Foster and her assistant Darcy Lewis are inside. Darcy is killing time by throwing corks into an empty glass. Suddenly, one of the devices in the van starts beeping. Darcy calls Jane. She studied the readings of the device, tries to contact the director of the shield. Jane claims that such bursts of energy can be dangerous. Jane and Darcy lean out of the hatch on the roof of the van and see a bright streak in the night sky. Darcy says that the invasion has begun. In the center of Las Vegas, Asgardians appear in a bright flash. Thor tells the frightened residents that their boring lives will soon come to an end because Thor has come to have fun. In this universe, a king named Odin did not take Loki for upbringing, but returned him to the ice giants. Thor, without the influence of his brother, grew up not at all as a noble hero as we know him. In Asgard, one falls into a deep sleep. Frigga, his wife, tells Thor that she is going to her sister. The full power over Asgard falls on Thor's shoulders. She asks her son to read about all 9 worlds and not to arrange feasts. Heimdall will look after the prince. Frigga leaves. Thor tells Heimdall that he is going to study. Thor, contrary to his mother's instructions, goes to Midgard, the earthly kingdom, to arrange a feast there. Together with his friends, Thor arrives in Las Vegas and throws a grand party. Jane Foster and Darcy arrive in Vegas. Jane says that judging by the indicators of the instruments, Thor was the first alien to arrive on Earth. Jane says that she will try to establish first contact with him, to which Darcy replies that half of Vegas has already established contact with Thor and suggests Jane to talk to Howard the Duck, who is also here. Jane still goes to Thor. The Prince of Thunder at this moment communicates with the Skrulls and asks them to turn into him. Jane meets Thor. She asks about the death of a star in the constellation Icarus that died recently. Thor replies that there was a very cool party. Thor and Jane have a conversation. Howard Duck and Darcy are watching. Howard, he offers the girl a drink. She agrees. Jane and Thor light up on the dance floor. The Grandmaster turns records. Nebula plays dice. Howard and Darcy are declared husband and wife by an Elvis impersonator. Jane and Thor do joint tattoos. The party becomes truly legendary. In the morning, Jane is woken up by the phone ringing. Jane and TRB get out of bed in the hotel room. Thor and the rest of the Asgardians are sleeping at different ends of the room. A rocket is sleeping in the bathroom sink. S.H.I.E.L.D. agents are knocking on the door of the room and demanding to open the door. Jane opens. The deputy director of the S.H.I.E.L.D., Maria Hill, speaks to her. She asks Jane to go with her because Dr. Foster was the first to warn the S.H.I.E.L.D. about the alien threat, and now Jane must help eliminate her. Jane scoffs that Thor is a threat to Earth, while Maria tells that Nick Fury is now unconscious in the hospital because he was knocked down by a stone alien yesterday when Fury tried to stop the party. Jane and Darcy are brought to the S.H.I.E.L.D. command center. Agent Coulson informs Director Hill that the party is spreading to the whole Earth. Thor Odinson is leading it. Jane asks if he left at least a note when he left. Coulson says that Thor is currently in Paris. One of the agents brings a suitcase. Maria opens it inside the pager. Director Hill calls Captain Marvel to Earth. Thor is taking pictures with fans in Paris. At this moment, Loki arrives, accompanied by ice giants. Thor and Loki first look at each other threateningly, but then greet each other like best friends. A shooting star appears in the sky and Thor offers Loki to make a wish. Captain Marvel lands next to Thor and asks Thor to finish the party and get off the ground. Thor refuses. Captain Marvel hits Thor in the face and he flies high into the air. Thor throws a hammer at the opponent. The captain dodges, but the hammer, returning, hits her on the back of the head. Thor strikes and Captain Marvel flies to Britain. She falls right in the middle of Stonehenge. Thor arrives there and destroys the historical monument. An enraged Carol beats Thor and he flies over the ocean and falls somewhere in the desert in Arizona. The fight continues. Thor shoots Carol with lightning bolts, but this only gives her strength. She impresses Thor into the ground and then throws him into the sky. The fight goes on among the clouds, but in the end Tori and Carol return to Paris. Thor puts his hammer on the captain's chest and now she can't get up from the ground. Carol arrives at the S.H.I.E.L.D. base. Maria Hill is perplexed because Fury believed that Captain Marvel is the strongest of the heroes. Carol replies that if she hits full force, she will punch a hole in the planet. Jane talks to Thor on the phone. Thor wants to see her as soon as possible. Jane asks if Thor really destroyed the planet at the last party. Thor replies that it's not true. Agent Hill and Carol decide to lure Thor to a deserted place, and there the captain uses all his strength. Jane does not want to participate in this. Maria Hill says that her help is no longer needed. On the street, Jane tries to call Thor, but Loki picks up the phone. Jane asks to call Thor, but Loki accidentally drops the phone and it breaks. Darcy says she needs to call Thor's mother to calm her son down. Thor is about to roll down the Opera House in Sydney, but Captain Marvel grabs him in the sky. At this time, Jane and Darcy are building a device to communicate with Asgard. Jane calls Heimdall and he takes her to himself. Captain Marvel and Thor are preparing for a new battle. Maria Hill orders the agents to prepare a bomb. Heimdall takes Jane to Frigga and she tells about the party that Thor arranged on Earth. Agent Hill is preparing to drop a bomb on Thor, but then Frigga appears in front of the Prince of Asgard and scolds her son. She says she will soon fly to Earth and check how her son is doing. Captain Marvel says that Thor would be better off cleaning up the ground and quickly. Thor arrives to Loki and says that the party needs to be finished. Loki says that Frigga is not his mother and leaves with the giants. Thor asks everyone to disperse, but first you need to clean up the planet. The guests are dissatisfied and are not going to help Thor. He uses the power of Odin and warns everyone that Earth is coming soon. Frigga will arrive. Now the guests rush to help him. Frigga arrives on Earth and sees Thor leading a lesson on the history of Midgard. Frigga looks at her son with doubt. Captain Marvel arrives and gives Thor a tablet with educational materials. Before returning home, Thor flies to Jane and invites her on a date. The girl agrees. Suddenly, a portal opens in front of Thor and robots come out of it, led by Vision in Ultron armor with Infinity Stones. Among the snow-covered ruins, a Black Widow is racing on a motorcycle. She is being chased by Ultron robots. Clint Barton covers her friend from the top of a dilapidated building. He shoots at the robots and they fall into the snow one by one. Natasha warns a friend that the robots' connection to Ultron's network will soon be restored, so they need to be destroyed as soon as possible. The robots land on the roof next to Hawkeye, who uses a camouflage cloak and attacks the robots surreptitiously, but the disguise soon falls off. The robots shoot at Barton and shoot off his mechanical arm. Clint with two enemies falls from the roof and lands in the snow. At this time, Natasha deals with her part of the enemies and blows the heads of the two remaining with the help of a motorcycle. She gives Barton her hand and helps him up. Clint asks where they ended up at all. Natasha replies that they are in Russia. In this universe, Tony Stark, wanting to ensure the safety of the Earth, created Ultron, but he rebelled against the creator. Ultron managed to create a perfect body for himself, reinforced with a Mind Stone. Ultron destroyed all the Avengers except Black Widow and Hawkeye and staged a nuclear apocalypse on Earth. When Ultron admired the work of his hands, behind him from the portal Thanos appeared. Ultron saw the Infinity Gauntlet on the Titan's hand, which lacked only one stone. The Stone of Reason. With one shot, Ultron killed the Mad Titan and took possession of the Infinity Stones. He recreated the Iron Legion and went to conquer other worlds. Asgard, Sakaar, Sovereign, Ego, all fell under the blows of Ultron. Ultron encountered Captain Marvel on Xandar, but even her strength was not enough to stop him. Ultron has completed his mission, destroyed life in his universe. Now he has become a program without a purpose, doomed to eternal loneliness. Ultron suddenly hears the voice of an observer telling his story. The robot realizes that there are other universes. He sees the observer. He closes himself in fear from the robot's gaze. The observer is scared, but still he believes that Ultron is vulnerable and the universe still has a chance to be saved. Natasha and Clint come to the old KGB archive. Among hundreds of shelves and thousands of boxes, they need a folder with the name Arnim Zola. An observer looks at them. He knows where the right folder is, but cannot interfere. Natasha finds a shield made of vibranium and takes it for herself. Clint loses hope and refuses to look for something when the necessary information is just around the corner. Natasha tries to cheer up her friend and takes out the box that Clint threw away. It is in it that she finds information about the secret Hydra base in Siberia, where the artificial intelligence of Zolo is stored, the only hope of the universe for salvation. Ultron bursts into the Observer's shelter and attacks him. Ultron must fulfill his destiny and destroy all life in the multiverse. Clint and Natasha arrive at the base in Siberia. They activate Zolo. The scientist initially refuses to help them, but under threat of destruction, agrees to cooperate. Natasha explains their plan to Zolo. Zolo must penetrate Ultron and destroy it from the inside. Barton loads Zolo into one of his arrows. Natasha calls the Avengers Tower to drones. Ultron was spotted by their coordinates. After the download is completed, Barton sets fire to the base. The arriving drones are attacked by Natasha and Clint. Barton puts an arrow into one of the drones and Zolo is loaded into the robot. It takes time for him to upload to the network. Natasha and Clint pull out a robot with Zolo's mind. The drones chase them. Natasha and Zolo climb the stairs. Barton sacrifices himself to detain the drones. Zolo says he can't connect to Ultron's network because it's outside the observable universe. Ultron fights with the Observer. Ultron throws the Observer and he flies through the universes. As a result, Ultron defeats the Observer and prepares to deliver a fatal blow, but the Observer manages to escape. But it doesn't matter anymore. Now Ultron sees the entire multiverse. The Watcher in his hideout talks to the Dark Doctor Strange. The Watcher is ready to break his oath and asks Stan for help. Dear friends, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe to the channel. This is important to me.